Right, going live. So hello everyone, my name is Karthik and I'm just going to be admitting people into the room as I'm speaking. So excuse me if it looks like I'm also working on my computer at the same time. We are also on YouTube Live. Yeah. So here's the context, right? We have last year we did a series of about 24 webinars every Tuesday from July to December, and it was a lot of effort and commitment from our side, but we also found out that a lot of people found it very, very useful. And so we thought we would do it one more time, as in we would do it again this year, not just today, but for the next few weeks, we are going to be doing it every other Tuesday. So we are going to be doing it today, and then we'll be meeting again towards the end of this month. Why are we here, right? So my name is Karthik. I run August Academy out of Chennai. I see Kaushik's here. Kaushik's been to our office. Welcome, Kaushik. So we were doing test prep towards the beginning of our journey. Right now, we are focusing almost exclusively on admissions counseling for business schools, more specifically for MBA programs. We've been in business since 2013. We've worked with hundreds of students. Can you guys hear me? Just give me a thumbs up or something. Yeah, great. Some people say they are not able to hear me. Ritvik is not able to hear me. Ritvik, is it better now? Okay, you can hear me now. Great. So we've had excellent results. Last year, in one of the most competitive years in history, we had somebody get into Harvard. And, obviously, we're very thrilled about that. We had somebody get into Tuck. The year before, we had 3 people get into Berkeley Haas. And that's a very big deal because Berkeley is a very small class and very, very few of its candidates are from India, right? And our students are almost exclusively from India. So the fact that we were able to get 3 people into Berkeley, we consider it a very big achievement. And we've also been doing very well in terms of scholarships. We don't have an exact count at this point, but the last count, which was somewhere towards the middle of last year, we would have tallied about $5.5 million in scholarships. So, each $1 million is about 7.5 crores. So we're looking at about 42 crores, right? So very happy, very proud. A little bit about myself. My name is Karthik. I'm the founder. I coach a lot of people here at August Academy. I am an alumnus of IIT Madras and Stanford. I also got into the exec MBA program at Stanford. But this was in the year 2012, 2013, for the 2013 intake. I couldn't take it up at that point, but that is also when I started August Academy, right? Just a very short introduction. I wanted everyone to know that we are live on YouTube as well, and we'll probably be sharing the video on our LinkedIn and Facebook channels at a later point in time. Right now, I'm opening up the floor for questions. This is strictly Q&A. I don't have any marketing or anything to be done. So if anyone has any questions about this upcoming admissions year, please let me know. I'm going to be taking questions.
Hi.
Hi, Garima. No, I think that's probably not a question. If anyone has any questions, please. And you can also keep typing questions into the chat window so that, as and when someone's speaking, I can read and then answer the question as and when it's given to me, right? So Siddharth, please go for it.
Yeah, hi Karthik. So I'm Siddharth, and I just wanted to ask you one thing. So because of this lockdown and everything, GMAT has gone online since last year, and but it allows a candidate only 2 attempts. So let's say both your attempts don't go well, and if centers in a city are not going to be open, so is there any probability that GMAT is going to have allow one more attempt or something like that in the future?
Well, last year for a long time they had only 1 attempt. So now you're telling me that they have given you 2 attempts. So that definitely is an improvement. So let's hope that they become a little bit more flexible. But even otherwise, I mean, how long can the centers be closed for, right? I know we are, okay, I'm as much as possible, I'm not going to be talking about what's happening around us. I want this to be a very positive space. But at some point in the next 2 months or so, hopefully the centers open up and things get back to normal. At which point this won't be an issue at all. But 2 attempts, that's definitely an improvement over last year. I'm going to ask everybody to mute unless you're actually speaking, right? Because there's a little bit of a feedback going on.
Hey, Karthik, one question.
Yes, this would be
Vashishta.
Vashishta.
So,
Hi, Vashishta.
yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. So my question is, how do you strike a balance between the August Academy saying recommending these particular schools to applicants versus the applicants wanting to apply for the schools that they think is good?
Okay. See, there is no balance here. Okay. By definition, we are probably going to be a little bit more cautious and a little bit more conservative in our approach towards recommending new schools. And I'll tell you why. We charge people, and because we charge people, people expect us to be responsible for the outcome. All right. Now, for about 80 to 90% of the people, an outcome means getting some admit, right? And for about 10 to 15% of the people, an outcome would mean getting into an Ivy League or something. All right. So by and large, we are geared towards helping the maximum number of people achieve their outcome. All right. And so we may be a little a little bit conservative in the way in which we suggest our shortlists to you. And this is primarily based on our previous years of history, right? In the past, we know someone with your kind of background, your kind of GRE or GMAT score, what kind of schools did they get into? All right. So by and large, that is going to be spot on. And by and large, even though I do say it is going to be cautious and conservative, that is probably going to be the highest ranked school you can get into. All right. But having said that, right, I don't make the decisions on whether to admit or deny you to an Ivy League program. An admissions officer from that particular college does it. And we wouldn't know for sure unless you actually apply. Okay. So if you are willing to take the risk, we are really happy to support you with your application to higher ranked programs. We don't have a problem with that. The only thing is you will need to understand that it is a risky proposition by definition. Okay. So we are willing to take the risk with you, but in case the result is adverse, then you need to understand that we were working on a difficult problem and that should not be considered as a reflection of our advice. So as long as you're okay with that, we are good.
Yeah,
that's that all right?
Yeah.
Great.
Hi, Karthik. This is Neha.
Neha. Hi, Neha. How are you?
So I'm good. Thank you for asking. So my question is, once you get rejected from a Dream B school, how do you go about evaluating your essays and your entire application for future B school applications?
See, one of the primary things is your goals essays. Okay. You need to figure out if your goals were practical in the sense, I get a lot of people who say they want to get into sports management. All right. And why do people, and usually it's guys, and why do people want to do that? Because they grow up watching EPL and IPL and, all these really glamorous and full of money kind of sports leagues. And they want to be a part of it. All right. It's very glamorous. A lot of people want to get into the financial sector. All right. Again, why do they want to do that? They want to do that because they've seen a lot of movies like The Wolf of Wall Street, or in the earlier days, there used to be this movie called Wall Street. Right. Michael Douglas, great movie. Should watch it if you get a chance. And, people are attracted by the glamour. Okay. But what happens is you may not have the background for it. All right. Let's say somebody grew up in an Indian context watching cricket and, very rarely tennis and very rarely hockey, as in field hockey. You're not going to have any background about ice hockey, for example, or baseball or basketball. And you don't know how the leagues operate in the United States. So you shouldn't, it's one thing to aspire to work in such a position, but one should also recognize that maybe you wouldn't be the first person to be considered for such a job should the colleges open up for that particular, should the companies recruit for that. Okay. Then there's also the other thing that there's not a whole lot of people recruiting for those jobs. Okay. So when somebody comes to me and says, this is the kind of job I want to get into, that seems very far-fetched. Okay. And an admissions officer is probably going to think the same thing. Now, why is this a problem, right? The school has its rankings, and one of the most important metrics that determine the rankings is the placement statistics. So if you look at all these schools, they publish this placement statistics saying 85% placed at the time of placement, 97% placed within 3 months of placement, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if they are not able to find you a job, that means you're going to be a hit on their statistic, and which means their ranking is going to go down. Okay, so they don't want to choose someone who has unrealistic goals. Okay, so the goals essay, the most straightforward evaluation is, were you being reasonably practical with regards to your goals? Do you have the right set of skills, the right set of transferable skills to be successful in your future goals? Mm-hmm. And but at the same time, is an MBA still necessary? If it's very practical, right? In the sense, if it's something where you can apply to today and you'll get a job tomorrow and you can start working next week, then an MBA is just a waste of your time, right? So even then, so neither too far-fetched, nor very, very practical, somewhere in the middle. So that's how you evaluate the goals essays. Mm-hmm. Now, with regards to the other essays, right? What happens is Yale has this essay, what is the biggest commitment you've made? Stanford says, what matters to you and why? Harvard says, is there anything else we should know? Oxford says, is there anything else we should know? Some people ask you for what is the biggest accomplishment you've made. Tuck says, what is the nicest thing you've done for someone? Kellogg says, what is something of lasting value that you've created? Over here, there are two components to the essay. One is the actual impact that you have created. So obviously saying the thing of lasting value that I made was the Maggie I made yesterday. Maggie just doesn't decompose. But then the other thing here is maybe you helped someone from an underprivileged background get a college education by being their mentor and then also sponsoring their finances or anything. I'm not a big fan of sponsoring as a route to extracurricular activities, but let's just say you did something like that. And because of that, that person went on to college and then their family is well taken care of right now, so on and so forth. So that may be lasting value. Then there may be somebody else who actually worked on an entire underprivileged school. And because of that, they were able to help about 200, 300 kids achieve success in life, right? So that's how you scale up impact. And then there's also the question of why does it personally matter to you? So on the one side, you may be graded or judged for the kind of impact you have created. On the other side, you may be judged for how clearly you are able to articulate whatever it is that you've done, okay? If there's a problem in either the articulation or the impact, then you may be taking a little bit of a backseat. So this is the best you can do with regards to essays. Now, let me also be honest with you here. A lot of people have very good essays, especially if they work with someone like us. They end up with very good essays. In addition to that, other things like what kind of industry do you work in? What kind of sector do you work in? What is your level of seniority? What is your promotion history like? Are you a top 5% employee or a top 50% employee based on your recommendations and your promotion history, right? And your GMAT score or GRE score. These also matter a huge amount. So, the essays, I would probably give the essays about 15 to 20% of weightage, okay? 80% is still your profile, right? So sometimes if there is some shortcoming in that, in the sense, have you been ambitious with regards to the choice of schools? That's also something you need to take into account, yeah?
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much.
Great. I'm going to take a few questions from the chat window, if that's okay. Sorry, these people have been typing questions for a while now. So Sushil Kumar has a question. What factors affect an applicant for an MBA through a GRE score than a GMAT score? Will a GRE be disadvantageous in case of getting a job opportunity in a consulting or a technology firm? At this point, for MBA admissions, it shouldn't matter whether you take the GRE or the GMAT. They are both considered to be on par with each other. just ensure that you are getting the right percentile scores, right? So that is important. The GRE shouldn't be a disadvantage for getting a job at a consulting firm or a technology firm. Having said that, historically, consulting firms have been looking at GMAT scores, but this should change. This shouldn't put you at a huge disadvantage. Get a very good score though, a 332 or something if you are targeting a top tier consulting firm. Samaksh has a question. What do business schools prefer? Entrepreneurs who have founded startups or applicants who have worked with top tier companies? Business schools are really looking for a mix of people. So they would like the entrepreneurs and they would also like the applicants who work for top tier companies. Let me tell you the biggest difference between somebody who works for a top tier company and somebody who works for a startup. When somebody works for a top tier company, there is no guarantee that the work they've done is excellent, but there is a guarantee that the work that they've done is above average. All right. So, I mean, as a conservative person, the guaranteed above average person is definitely attractive to me. And I can always pick up the phone, talk to the HR of, let's say, an Accenture or a Deloitte and find out if you really work there and what your designation was, which unit you are associated with. So all of that is verifiable. Okay. So that's why an applicant who works for a top tier company is attractive. All right. Now, what's the deal with a startup, right? Startups, family businesses. What happens a lot of the times is people reach out to us saying that they work for a startup. People reach out to us saying that they work for a family business. There is no way to verify whether that is true. Okay. Especially when somebody is working for a family business, it's very easy for you to get an inflated title like vice president, managing director, chief of staff, all of these titles. You'll have all these fancy titles. You may even say you've done some great work by, generating business worth $1 million for your family and all that stuff. I don't know if you did that or your dad did that, okay? And the admissions officer also does not know that. So that's the only catch here, okay? But when is it acceptable? When you have a startup, when you manage to take it to the venture funding route, right? And you manage to raise, it doesn't have to be a lot of money. It could be like $1 million or something, but you manage to raise that money and it's coming from a reputable partner, okay? So that means there is somebody else who acknowledges that you've done something good. So in such a situation, being a startup founder is actually an advantage, okay? So if you have a venture funded startup, by all means, I think that would be an advantage. Then again, if you have a venture funded startup and you've raised like, I don't know, $200 million at a valuation of billion, which means you've created a unicorn, then, what are you doing applying for an MBA, right? So there's that balance there also. Pratik has a question. How does this consultation program work? I'm just starting with my application. I've already written the GRE. Should I also write the GMAT? I'll take this question in the last 10 minutes, Pratik, if that's okay. Lalita has a question. Does TOEFL score matter a lot for the MBA application? There are some colleges, especially colleges in California, that require you to take the TOEFL. Okay, UCLA does, UC Berkeley does. And then across the US and some colleges in Europe also require you to submit a proof of English language facility. Okay. In that case, you need to take the TOEFL. The score doesn't matter as long as you're above the cutoff. So usually schools publish a cutoff around 104 or something. So as long as you're okay, it doesn't matter whether you have 108 or 120. Hi, Karthik. I'm 36 years old. I have a GMAT of 730. Want to look for a 1-year MBA, as I think 2-year MBA will not work for me. I'm confused. Should I do MBA from India, Europe, and US? Could you please guide which country and which schools I should prefer? See, I mean, by and large, in India, you may only have the option of doing a 1-year MBA, whether you do it from ISB or from the IIMs, the executive programs of the IIMs. So if you want to study in India, you will be choosing a 1-year MBA. Within Europe, most programs are 1-year programs. So that's also something that gets automatically determined. And within the US, most programs are 2-year programs. But having said that, for someone who is a relatively senior applicant, with about 10, 15 years of experience, you would be considered a senior applicant. You may be better suited for an executive program. Okay. Now, from an executive program point of view, if you're looking for a full-time executive program, there are only about 4 or 5 full-time executive programs outside of India. So Stanford has one, MIT has one, London Business School has one, USC Marshall has one, and Kellogg and Columbia have 1-year programs. IMD has a regular MBA program that is targeted at a slightly older crowd. So the average age there is about 30, 31. Okay. So these are some of the programs you may consider. You may not be a great fit with a regular MBA program, but you'll have to examine this on a case-by-case basis. So Sushil has a question. Do you expect more deferrals to affect the 21-22 admission cycle also? There may be a few deferrals from last year to this year, but having said that, a lot of colleges opened as planned last year, and at least as far as August Academy goes, a good number of our students actually enrolled on time. Okay. Some of them opted for deferrals, maybe about 4 or 5 of them, but a good number of them, even in August and September, they got their visas, they traveled in, the crisis situation, and then they landed up on their target campuses, right? At least that's the students I'm in touch with. I understand that there's a variety of students out there, and everybody may have chosen to handle this differently. I do expect the number of deferrals to go down this year compared to last year. So you should be okay. This year should be less competitive than the previous year, but the previous year was one of the most competitive years ever. Avdesh has a question. I have 11 years of experience. Should I apply for B schools in the US? I have a typical civil engineering profile with a 740 GMAT, looking for a 2-year program. So my high end, no, it should be okay. You will be older than the average applicant. But 11 years is still, it's okay. It's on the higher side, but I think you may still apply for regular MBA programs. Shreyash has a question. I have a GMAT score of 710, work ex of 4 years with Maruti Suzuki. I applied to ISB last year and was put on waitlist. Do I stand a chance for ISB if I apply again? What should I do to boost my profile and my chances? Typically, a 710 and the kind of profile you've indicated should have worked at ISB. This is one of the scenarios where you're good for 80%, and the 20%, which is the essay, may or may not have worked. So it's that's one area where you may want to examine what exactly you did. If you were invited to interview, then you may want to think about what happened in the interview. Okay. If you believe that you did a good job on the essays and the interview, then this is just pure bad luck. Definitely apply again. How can you make your chances better? Standard options are get a better GMAT, get more leadership experience at work, and also try to boost your extracurriculars, right? So that should be it. Praneeth has a question. Is a Canadian top 2 B school better than a top 20 US business school? Rotman is roughly equivalent to a top 15 US business school. This is just my opinion. I visited Rotman's campus. I visited some top 7, top 10 campuses in the US as well. Rotman has great facilities. But having said that, from an international branding point of view, it is still building its international branding, right? So the quality of education is excellent. They have excellent facilities. I would definitely say Rotman is as good as a top 15. But moving out of Rotman and into, let's say, Ivy or Queens or Schulich, I don't know much about these programs. I've not visited their campuses. They are good programs, but if you look at what's between 15 and 20, you have your Carnegie Mellon Tepper, your UT Austin McCombs, your UNC Kenan Flagler, your Georgetown. These are excellent programs as well. They have reasonably good international branding. Maybe you could consider it to be on par with the top 20, top 25, but yeah, outside of Rotman, I would still prefer the US Business School, but Rotman is perfectly fine. Rahul has a question. Can a person with an Indian MBA from a Tier 1 college apply? Are schools open to such applications? The answer is yes, you may apply. You will need to think about why you want another MBA program. And you will need to be able to clearly explain why you want that program to the admissions committee through your essays and your interviews. Definitely, you should have commensurate work experience, and your post-MBA goals, as in your post-second MBA goals, should make sense, right, for you to require another MBA. Not all schools are open to such applications. Tuck for example, is not. Berkeley is also a little skeptical of second MBA candidates, but Ross is perfectly fine. UCLA is perfectly fine. Duke is okay. Booth is okay, right? It's always best to check with the school if they are willing to accept a second MBA application. About 65 to 70% of the schools are, but do your due diligence and then, yeah, by all means, apply if you have to.
Follow up with this.
Yes.
Follow up to this question.
Okay.
So when you say checking up with these schools, essentially is just writing a mail to these schools and asking their thoughts.
Yeah, that should be it. That should be it. And in case they are not responding, they will also be organizing webinars this year. So you may attend their webinars and then you may ask them a question. This is a question that a lot of people are likely to have. So they'll definitely pick it up and they'll answer that for you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. So Ritvik has a question. Hi, targeting Canadian MBAs. How was August Academy's result in the past couple of years for Canadian MBAs? We've had people get into all top Canadian programs, which includes Rotman, Kellogg, Ivy, Queens, everything. Very interesting story here with regards to Rotman. So there was a gentleman who had applied the previous year and did not make it, all right? And he got in touch with us and we helped him with his Rotman application one more time, as in the reapplication this year. So we applied an early round and I think we did an excellent job on the essay. And, we were supposed to meet for the second or third college in order to brainstorm the essays, right? This was probably a Monday or something. We had an appointment set up. Just as he called in, he said, "Hey, Karthik, I just heard and I have been invited to interview." This was an early decision and the interview was like, I've selected like a Wednesday slot or something. So that was great. But obviously, if there's an interview coming up in 2 days, you have to prepare for it. So I asked him, okay, that means why don't we do the brainstorming for the third college later? Then why don't we just start preparing for the interview? He's like, Karthik, no, I'm not prepared. I was like, see, we don't have time to prepare. We just have 2 days. So we better get moving with it real fast. But he understood the logic, but he still felt a little underprepared, right? So the last time he was waitlisted, he was interviewed and then he was waitlisted and then he was rejected. Okay. So I asked him, okay, let's look at your previous interview. We don't have to do a full-fledged mock interview right now, but let's just look at this previous interview and see what happened. So he said, okay. And then he said, okay, first they asked me this, I answered as such. They asked me this, I answered as such. And then he walked me through the entire interview process. And then nothing major. I said, okay, these are the things that you've done right, but then these are the things that you've done wrong. And this is how you will change your answers to this. Okay. And then, so this took us about half an hour. And then we took about 10-15 minutes to think about what other weaknesses were there in his profile. There was really just one big weakness, okay? His GPA was very average, somewhere between 5 and 6, and his GMAT was 710. It was the same thing last year, and it was the same thing this year as well. So his GMAT hadn't really changed. So my guess here was that the GMAT could have been one of the reasons, especially combined with a very subpar GPA. So I said, okay, let's look at what you've done at work that is analytical in nature. And he says, Karthik, I'm a civil engineer, I'm a project manager, I manage large teams of, 50 to 100 people, and we build big malls and shopping complexes in Dubai. There's nothing really analytical about it. I have excellent people skills, but I am not really required to do anything analytical. I said, yeah, no, I understand, but I'm sure there's something. And then we brainstormed a little bit, okay? And after about 10 to 15 minutes worth of discussion, we found out that he was actually, working with his suppliers who were supplying him with building materials and all that. And so he was going through a tendering process, and then he was selecting the best supplier based on a few parameters. And then he was tracking the flow of materials from their site to the construction site. And, he was also working with the shippers. And, it was a reasonably complex supply chain that he was dealing with. Not ultra complex, definitely not as complex as what you may find in the auto industry or the aero industry or the shipping industry. But, reasonably complex. And as a single person, he was optimizing it so that material was procured at the cheapest cost in the quickest possible time, right? And this was something that he was doing on Excel, and he was doing some pros and cons analysis before settling down on the optimal solution. So I said, hey, this is reasonably analytical. Find a way to talk about it in the interview. Talk about the process that you follow, because that is where you can demonstrate your intellectual aptitude. And we did that, or he did that. And by Friday of the same week, so this was a discussion we had on Monday, Wednesday was the interview, and Friday of that week, he actually had the offer from Rotman. He was doing the previous year and nothing changed in his profile, right? But we just took a different approach to essay writing and interview prep, and then he got his offer, right? So that's a story that I particularly like, because we were able to change the result without any change in the application statistics. Rahul has a question.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
please.
Avinash. Yeah.
Hi, Avinash.
So for a person, who's planning to, settle back in India, so which one do you think would be better, an MBA in India or, abroad?
So I think you should be fine both ways. If you want to work in India immediately after your MBA and you're not that jet set on getting a top global brand, then an Indian MBA should work just fine for you. Okay. ISB is a great school. The exec programs at IIMs are great. And, from a financial point of view, they make sense as well, right? So at this point, I think you wouldn't be spending more than 35 lakhs. But then again, if you're a star candidate, if you're working for a top tier firm and you have the background that will allow you to break into an Ivy League program or a Harvard or a Stanford or a Wharton, if you can get into a program of that caliber, then I would definitely encourage you to go for it. Okay. For anyone else who's interested in working abroad for a few years, definitely studying abroad makes sense, because that's a smoother transition, right?
So a person who does an MBA abroad, so if he's planning to come back to India, would he have the equal opportunity? Would he have equal opportunities compared to colleges like ISB or IIM A, BC?
Yes and no. Provided it's a top tier firm, you will probably have the offer even before you land in India. But if it's not a top tier college, then you may end up interviewing with a few firms. And sometimes HR recruiters are not, they take advantage of you, all right? They will recognize that you have an excellent degree, but they may not be willing to pay you more than what they would pay for an ISB grad or an IIM grad, okay? So I'm just speaking hypothetically here, okay? But at the same time, let's say you spend about 2 or 3 years working abroad for a Google or a Facebook, and you actually manage to do good work there, and you get an intra-company transfer back to India, then you would be working at a much higher position. So typically, my advice to you, if you're studying abroad, is probably work in a multinational firm for a couple of years and try to take an intra-company transfer back to India. And that would probably give you the best shot at getting a high-profile job, okay? Or you study at a top tier college. So, either of those two. Top tier doesn't necessarily mean top 4 or 5. It could even mean like top 20 or so. So Rahul has a question. Can the team evaluate my profile? So Rahul, we don't have the bandwidth to do individual profile evaluations for everyone. But that is also why we are doing these web meetings. So from today till the end of June, we are probably going to be meeting, no, probably here, I'm sorry. We are definitely going to be meeting every other Tuesday, every second Tuesday. Now, in case you are done with your GRE and GMAT and you have the right amount of WorkX, please reach out to us. We'll try to see if we can arrange a profile evaluation individually. We also have some business reasons for scheduling profile evaluations for some people sooner than others. We look at the probability that somebody would sign up. We are also running a business here. So while we want to help a lot of people, we also want to ensure that people are willing to sign up and all that. So I can give you the details if you send me an email. But primarily our webinars would be the first touch point. We also have a Telegram group, which the link to which would have been emailed to you when you signed up. Please join our Telegram group. The Telegram group is reasonably active. We have about 94 people or 93 people at this point. Hopefully we are able to touch 100 by the end of this week. I keep posting something on the Telegram group once in a week or something, and it's reasonably okay. It's quite active. So these are definitely two avenues. But if you're done with the GRE or GMAT, please shoot me an email, and then I'll be happy to give you some details on how we can proceed forward. Lohit has a question: how important is the AWA? Try your best to get a good AWA score. But in case you're not able to, then that's okay. I mean, your verbal and your quantitative score matter more. So focus on that. But, you know, I mean, most people should be able to get more than a 4 or a 4.5 on the AWA. If you're doing less than 4 or 4.5, then that means your writing is really bad. Okay. What is a good GRE score to get admits into top schools and jobs afterwards? If you're looking at a top 10 or a top 15 program, for a top 10, I would say maybe a 333 or a 334. For a top 15, I would say definitely a 331 or so. Which score is best to report? 750, Q50, V41, IR1, or 720? Go with the 750. If you don't have managerial experience, then do we need to enroll in any business courses to stand out? No, that won't be sufficient. Definitely enroll in business courses if you have the bandwidth for it, but that is not to demonstrate or replace the fact that you don't have managerial experience. That is just to show that you are really interested in business. Okay. But if you don't have managerial experience, try to lead a project at work, try to get involved with extracurricular activities, showcase your leadership in some other manner, right? I think that's the best way to do this. Rahul has a question. Both me and my wife are 30 years old. Are regular MBA programs open to this age group? Yeah, I think I answered this question a while back. So someone who was 31 had also expressed the same sentiment. Yes, you would be on the older side, but regular MBA programs are still open. I'll have 9 years of experience by the time I join B school. Can I consider the 2-year program or the 1-year program? I have a GRE score of 334. Again, the same answer applies to you as well, Lohit. You should be on the older side, but again, it's not impractical for you to apply. You can apply to the 2-year program or the 1-year program, depending on whether you want to study in the US or Europe. But I think both programs are up for consideration. How is our academy different from others? Lalita has a question. I'm going to be taking this question towards the end, Lalita, if that's okay. Gaurav has a question. Where does an Indian male of 30 years with 7.5 years of military experience working in a co-owned, founded startup stand in a pool of candidates? Heavily overrepresented or somewhat overrepresented, or average representation or underrepresentation, or unique? Thank you. First of all, it's always nice to speak to someone who's had military experience because you've taken up a profession which not a whole lot of us had the courage to take up. So definitely thanks for that. In the choices that you've given, right, I would probably put you somewhere between average representation and underrepresentation. Okay. What do I mean by this? We don't have a lot of military applicants applying. Okay. That is definitely true. But having said that, there's enough number of military applicants. Okay. Likewise, we don't have, no, actually, let me change that. We have a good number of startup folks applying. Okay. So from that point of view, again, you have a little bit of competition. Now, what happens with regards to military experiences? Sure, the organization you're working for is the Army or the Navy or the Air Force. But if the kind of work you are doing is, operations on board a ship, okay, or let's say operations at an airport, or let us say supply chain management of food and essential provisions in, let's say, an Excelite hit area, okay. From a technical point of view, the kind of experience you have would be the kind of experience somebody else in a corporate setup will have. Okay. The context is that you are working for the military, but the nature of experience is such that someone in the corporate setup may also share similar experience. Okay. So you will definitely be considered unique from the point of view that you had the conviction to pursue a career in the military, but the nature of your work experience, somebody else in the corporate sector may have similar work experience. It's possible. I'm not saying it is very common, but I'm just saying it is possible. Okay. And yeah, startup founders, we spoke about startup founders before. There's a good number of startup founders as well. I have 3 years work as a data analyst, Ernst & Young, Myntra, 700 GMAT. Should I give my GMAT again for the ISB application? I think, yeah, if you can get a 720 or so, that would be good. What are the USB schools I can target with the score? Maybe a school in the top 30 or top 35. Venu has a question. I have 5 years of experience with work profile involving plant operations and electrical vehicles customer experience. 690 on the GMAT. Is it advisable to retake the GMAT or apply for a school in the top 30? If you believe that your score can be improved, then definitely go for it. But if you tried really hard and you are reasonably realistic and you think 690 is about as high as it gets, then be happy with that score. And yeah, a top 30 or a top 35 seems to make sense. How to showcase a work experience in business terms when you are from a hardcore coding background? See, the thing about B school resumes is you need to speak from the point of view of the income, not the income, the impact you've created on either your organization or your client's organization or the end customer. Okay. So it may be true that on a daily basis, you are coding applications for a bank. Okay. But what is the outcome that you've generated? Maybe what you've done is you've helped the loan approval process go down from 3 weeks to 1 week. And that's huge. Okay. I still remember when I first applied for a loan, a car loan, about 9-10 years ago, I think. It took me close to 2 to 3 weeks. All right. But nowadays, I believe a car loan can be approved in about 1 or 2 days. All right. So, and you know, the same thing's true about passports as well. About 10 years ago, passports, I mean, it would take us at least about a month or 2 to get our passports. But nowadays, even under normal scheme of things, we are able to get our passports in about a week or so, right? And why is this possible? Because somebody from the IT industry worked to make that process more efficient. So I don't care if you're coding in C++ or Java or C#. The point is you were able to cut down the time it took me to receive my passport from 1 month to 1 week. And that is huge. And I'm not the only person who benefited from this. About 130 crore Indian people have benefited from this, right? Same thing's true for banking. So the loan approval process goes from 2 weeks to 2 days. How many people are benefiting from this? Think about it. So this is how you showcase your work experience in terms of not business, but in terms of accomplishment. What relationship should you start building with your prospective business school before applying? Don't look at it from that point of view. Rather, think of it as a learning process. If you are interested in a particular business school, then you should be interested in trying to find out how that business school is going to help you. So sign up for their webinars, sign up for their master classes. COVID is actually a great leveler in the sense before COVID, people were actually doing campus visits and that's how they could have attended classes. But because of COVID and because of the fact that a lot of events are happening remotely and virtually right now, you get the opportunity to attend some of the master classes that some of the professors at Chicago, Booth, and Stanford are offering, right? So attend some of these classes and try to find out how exactly this can help you. So that is really what you should be doing, and try to reach out to some students and alums as well. And when the time comes to write your essays, you can say, hey, I attended 5 events. This is what I learned about the business school through the 5 events that I attended. I spoke to 10 alumni, and this is what I learned from them. I'm really excited about your school. The fact that you've done all this work adds substance when you say you were excited. Okay. If you say you're excited without doing any of these things, then you're not really demonstrating your excitement. Okay. So Vibanshu has a question. I have a 600 in the GMAT, and I've been working for a certain firm, which is August Academy's competitor, for 3 years and a total of 5 years of experience. I have re-engineered the entire process for one of the products and have hired and trained 100-member teams currently working under me. What are my chances? I believe your profile is good, but your GMAT is definitely on the lower side. You're not the only person from this company to be consulting with us. We've definitely consulted with someone who worked for your firm maybe about 2 years ago. And this year, again, we are in talks with about 2 or 3 people from your firm. So great company, but I'm happy that you guys are reaching out to August Academy instead of working internally. Sushil has a question. Could you name some USB schools which provide better career options in the tech industry in the US and Canada? Sure, of course. Stanford, UC Berkeley, Anderson, Tepper. These would be the big names. Michigan Ross, right? So these would be the big names. But really, any school in the top 15 or 20 should be fine. Okay, but these would be the big names. Is connecting with professors of a target B schools a good idea? If there's something important to discuss, by all means go for it. But otherwise, I think it is not necessary. How are the UK B schools which are beyond Oxbridge and LBS like Cranfield, Durham, etc.? Definitely second tier, third tier kind of programs. If you wish to work in the UK, definitely these are programs that you may consider. You may want to have a GMAT target of around 630 to 650 for these programs. But ideally speaking, I would say try to get as close to a 700 as possible and get to a tier 1 program. That would be the best. Avinash, I think I answered this question about whether you should be doing an MBA in India or abroad if you wish to settle in India. Ritvik has a question. Canadian B school in round 1, have a 700 on the GMAT, 36 months of WorkX. Working as a program manager at Amazon, can I apply to Canadian MBAs with this GMAT? Rotman may be a little difficult. Okay. Schulich, Ivy, Queen, Sauder may work. It all depends on your extracurricular activities. If you have stellar extracurricular activities, then even Rotman may work. But ideally, I would encourage you to try to improve your GMAT score to about 740 or so if you want to consider Rotman. For Ivy, maybe a 710 or a 720. Schulich, Queens, and Sauder, your GMAT is not going to be a bottleneck. Hopefully, you have interesting things to write about and your goals are in place, and I think that should be good. Shrikar has a question. Could you expand on the experience with applications for INSEAD and IMD? Not sure what you mean. We've had people get into INSEAD and IMD, that's for sure.
I think, hey Karthik, this is Shrikar. I just wanted to check on the brand recognition of MBA because I worked with, I've been working with Deloitte for 6.5 years, 2 years in North America and 2 years in London. And I don't really see MBA as a MBA program recognition in the team here as much as I would see when I was working in US and Canada. So just your experience with the schools and how
these are great schools and they have great branding. A lot of students are really excited to study in both INSEAD and IMD. So I would say the branding is as strong as a top 10 or top 15 US program for sure. Could you talk about MBA brand recognition in Europe versus North America? See, the MBA is definitely much more recognized in North America compared to Europe. But having said that, I do believe that with the major recruiters, the recognition is going up in Europe as well. And yeah, you just explained your profile to me. So Karthik, as in another Karthik has this question. I have 5+ years of experience, data analytics for 4 years and entrepreneurial experience since then. GMAT of 720, lots of community service. Would it make sense to attend a 2-year MBA from the US rather than a 1-year from UK, EU? I think this has nothing to do with your profile. This has a lot more to do about, with your goals and aspirations. If you are looking to study in the US, if you think the US would provide you with good opportunities for a career, go to the US. And if you have reasons to study in the UK or the EU, then go to the UK or EU. The 2-year or 1 year is something that just follows from there, right? What are the steps for profile building after GMAT exam? Very straightforward. Have great work experience. Try to get as much leadership experience as possible. Good extracurriculars. So these would be the 3 points after the GMAT. My wife is 36, 12 years of purely creative experience. She's a writer with ad agencies and media houses, currently pursuing GMAT. How open would the schools be with her kind of profile? I think this is a very niche question. Now, if she's had leadership experience in the workplace and strong leadership experience at that, then she may be a better candidate for the exec MBA program. But if she has been an independent contributor and she wants to get into business, it may be possible that she would be a good candidate for the regular MBA program as well, regardless of her age. With regards to whether schools would be open, provided she has the right reasons for doing an MBA, schools would be open, not a thing to worry about. Just ensure that she is doing a good job on her GMAT, and that should be it. Senior business analyst in the software industry, client-facing role, domain expertise in e-commerce, retail, energy and utilities, transportation, US Class 1 Railroad, 11 years of experience, GMAT 760. What programs and schools could be your best pick for this profile? I don't quite see how these different industries fit together. In the sense there's software on the one side and there's transportation and railroad on the other side. I'm assuming you've developed software for these industries, right? So that would mean you're primarily an IT engineer with a 760, which is excellent. I think you should be able to target a school in the top 12 or so, provided you have good extracurriculars. And this is only because it seems like this is an IT profile and there's a lot of people from the IT industry who would be applying. But if there's enough strong personal stories, there's no reason why you can't look at the top 7. Samaksh has a question: how important is social work for your application? And is there any ideal duration? See, it's not just about social work, right? They are looking for rounded people, someone who is a good student, as evidenced by the GPA and the GMAT, someone who's got excellent work experience, and someone who's had a life outside of work. This could be a few hobbies, this could be travel, this could be community service, right? So think of it as a way in which schools understand what you do besides studying or working. And for a lot of people, this becomes valuable because at the entry level, you don't get a lot of opportunity to demonstrate leadership at work, which means you can demonstrate leadership only when you're working with a non-profit organization and working on something good for your society. We planned this as a 1-hour conversation. I believe there's quite a few questions coming up. Please write to me, and we'll definitely have another session in 2 weeks. So we'll definitely have more opportunities to meet and discuss. I'm going to take about 5 minutes to discuss how we work with people, because somebody had that question. And then I'm happy to stay about 10 minutes past 7:30 as well. So, I may be able to take 2 or 3 more questions from the list. Okay. So we have 3 tiers of packages. There's a comprehensive tier of package, there's an ultra tier of packages, and then there's an all-in tier of packages. Okay. A good number of students sign up for the comprehensive tier of packages. And how exactly do we work with this, right? So once you start working with us, the first thing is for me to understand your background. I have a certain set of questions to which I would request your answers. And through this process, you may end up writing about 2,000 to 3,000 words of content. It's likely to take you somewhere between 15 and 20 days. Now, it shouldn't take you that much time to write 2,000 to 3,000 words. So why do you still take 15 to 20 days? That's the time that we've observed people taking on average. I believe it's partly because people want to think and then write, because it's important, right? I mean, when I ask them what is their biggest accomplishment, or other name 5 big accomplishments that they've had in life, they definitely want to cycle through a lot of things that they've done, and they want to present the best possible things, right? So that takes them some time. The thinking part takes some time. And of course, I mean, it's not like this is the only task you have at hand, right? I mean, you have to attend your office, whether virtually or, going in, but, that's what your regular job is, and you're getting paid to do that. So that's what you should be focusing on. So this becomes relegated to the side, right? So as a result, people take about 15, 20 days for this. But after that, I would be able to review the content that you shared with me. That will give me a better idea of where your strengths and weaknesses are with regards to MBA applications, and I would be able to propose a shortlist for you. So that's the first part. Then what happens is we schedule a brainstorming call once we have decided on the list of colleges. So for every college, we'll schedule a brainstorming call. Okay, this is as per the comprehensive package. We have a limit of 1 brainstorming call per college. Now, in that particular call, we'll get together, we'll discuss all the life stories that you shared with me. And then we'll look at the essay questions that the college has asked, and we'll figure out what is the best approach to take for each essay. And I'll help you put together a structure for each essay. All right. So that's the outcome of the brainstorming call. And then you would write a draft based on the structure that we've developed. And my turnaround time is about 2 to 3 days. I'll get back to you with my comments on how you can improve your drafts. And then you can share further drafts with me, and then I can give you more comments. We'll keep going back and forth till you get it right. So that's typically the process we follow. We don't do any writing for you. You will be doing the writing, but we will be helping you put your thoughts in order. And I think that is the biggest value, right? Now, even for this gentleman that I was talking about, the person who got into Rotman, we spent quite a bit of time figuring out the perfect structure for what his essays should look like. This is a spike factor essay. It's a very personal essay, right? We follow the same process for every college. So this is how the comprehensive package works. There's a small difference between our 3-school and our 5-school comprehensive package. And that is that in the 5-school package, we also have 2 mock interviews, okay? So that's the basic idea. In our 3-school comprehensive package, we'll have a total of 4 calls, no limits on the number of edits. In our 5-school comprehensive package, we'll have a total of 8 calls, including the 2 mock interviews. Again, no limits on the number of edits. Our turnaround times are between 2 and 3 days. And yeah, that's mostly it, right? Brainstorming calls will be set up between 1 and 7 p.m. India time. The Ultra package is like the comprehensive package. The only thing is we don't limit the number of phone calls. And because of this, we charge slightly more for the Ultra package, okay? What do we charge for this, right? For the 5-school comprehensive package, we charge 2.3 lakhs plus GST. That comes around 2.7 or something. And for the 5-school Ultra, we charge 3.4 plus GST. The 3-school comprehensive, we charge 1.8 plus GST. So this is our pricing. If anybody wants this, I can send a spreadsheet right away. Just send me an email and I'll be happy to send you a spreadsheet. We've also recorded a few videos where I've explained our counseling process in a lot more detail. It should take you about 10 minutes to see those videos. I can share those videos with you as well, right? So this is our counseling process. In addition to this, we'll also be sharing about 8 to 10 hours of video content, which includes an overview of the MBA admissions process. In fact, just give me a minute. I will give you guys a gift for attending today. Just a minute. Yeah, so this is our MBA admissions masterclass. You will get access to the MBA admissions masterclass, which has a total of about 8 to 10 hours of content. And why is this a gift? Because the first section, about 1.5 hours worth of videos, that's available for free and you can look at it right away. And this should give you an overview of the entire MBA admissions process. What we don't give you access to unless you sign up, that's the resume workshop and then the essay writing workshops. And then the interview prep webinars, which will also be shared to you after you get to the interview stage, okay? So this is a broad overview of our package. I'm happy to have one-on-one discussions for anyone who's interested in signing up. Lohit, I wouldn't be able to reference this from the chat. Please send me an email and I'll be happy to share the sheet with you. Yeah. So just remember to send me an email. My email is here. Yeah. Now there was another question about why we are different. We offer a lot of personal attention to people. So that is one thing. I'm learning to be a life coach and a business coach. And one of the things that we learn through that is how exactly do you get somebody to introspect and find out their most impactful stories, right? So I've been very successful at talking to people and getting them to think about where they've had the most impact in life. And when we write about those particular incidents, automatically your essays become that much better, right? And of course, we follow a very, very efficient editing process. Everything is tracked using technology tools. So it's a very seamless process. Once you sign up with us, you know exactly what you're going to be doing over the next 5 to 6 months. Everything is laid out for you in our project management platform. And then you just have to execute one step after another. So we end up saving you a lot of time. But it's not just about saving you time or helping you construct essays. It's more about helping you discover where you've had the most impact in your life. And that is something that not many people are able to do. So that's my experience. So we are at 7:30 right now. That was officially the close. So, if somebody has to leave, that should be okay. But maybe I'll go back and pick up some of the questions that I had to pass over, right? So Samaksh had the question, how important is social work? We definitely answered that. Gauravi has a question, how can I improve my extracurricular or profile if I have good academics, cleared NEET and earned PhD, but I taught a bunch of students during my PhD, but I don't have any documents to show it. Assuming you have about 3-4 years of work experience after the PhD, that is still not sufficient. I would really encourage you to get started with something on the extracurricular side right now. And if you get started today, which is the 18th of May, you'll have about 4 months of solid extracurricular experience by September, October, and a good 7 months by December, right? And that is enough to achieve something substantial. So get started today. Sushil has a question. I've taken the GRE twice. My first score was 328. AWA of 3, second score is 321 with an AWA of 4.5. Go with the 328, that's okay. What are the best schools for a post-MBA career in social impact? Tuck is good, Yale is good. European schools, I'm not able to think of something. Vibhanshu has a question, how are the MBA programs in the Netherlands? Rotterdam is great. Shrikar has a question, I have a GMAT of 720, 6.5 years. Your GPA is a little bit on the lower side. Provided you have good work experience, you may be in contention for INSEAD. I think we really need to open up your work experience and figure out what kind of work you've done. If it's an IT consulting kind of job, then you may have to take a backseat. But if it's a regular consulting kind of job, then you may actually be at an advantage and you may be a good candidate. Siddharth has a question, does my undergrad school's reputation play a role in my application process? A little bit, but not a whole lot. So don't worry about that too much. I had already posted the question where I had mentioned that I have 700 on the GMAT, 3 years of work ex as a data analyst. I'm from NIT Trichy. Does this make any difference? Not a whole lot. I mean, it really depends on the kind of work experience you have, and a higher GMAT is always better. 3 years of work experience as an analyst, 2 years at McKinsey, 1 year at Funds India, 750 on the GMAT. What would be the best US colleges for me to apply, realistically speaking? So it really depends on what you've done at McKinsey. If you are a consultant, then I think this is excellent. You should be able to target a top 7 or 8. If you are in their data analytics kind of team, then, that experience may not be as valuable as consulting experience. But still, everything else is great. So I would still expect you to be able to target a top 12 or top 14 max to max. Yeah, Kaushik, send me an email on this.
Yes, sir. Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. How should one go about the LOR process? The LOR process is very straightforward, right? I mean, you find two people who can who are willing to write recommendations for you. Ideally, they should be from your supervisors. Ideally, one of them should be from a current supervisor. In case you're not able to get one from a supervisor, then you need to think about who the next best option would be. Have a short discussion with them with regards to what they think about your strengths and weaknesses. And once you have the discussion, jot down the notes. And for each strength, try to give them an example of a time when you demonstrated that strength at work. So they may think that you are a very strong leader. So think of a time when you demonstrated leadership. They may think you have great business sense. Think of a time when you demonstrated great business sense. So write about all that and present it to them in a recommendation packet and leave it up to them to decide whether to use it or not. At the end of the day, they should be writing their own content. They may find that the fact that you've reminded them of some of these examples, that may help them remember those examples and then also talk about it in the application, perhaps in their own words. So, that's typically how you go about the LOR process. How much time must one keep at hand for the application process? We recommend that people take about 3.5 to 4 months for about 5 applications. Yeah, I think that is really everything. So if there are no other questions, I'll see everyone 2 weeks from today, and I'll get back to you on email, question.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. You have a great